Well, Montreal and the city's police force expected to make a decision in the near future on the controversial thin blue line symbol that is worn by some officers. Maybe you've seen it. It looks like a Canada flag patch, but it's black and white. And through the middle of the Canadian flag, there's a thin blue line. That's what that looks like. I've seen it on the uniforms of some Montreal police officers. Now, that symbol has become a cultural flashpoint. Police say it represents service and fallen colleagues, while critics say it's been adopted by racist movements. Let's find out what the city's thinking is on this. Alain Vaillancourt joins us, head of public security on the executive committee of the City of Montreal. Well, Alain, welcome back to the show. And thanks
Morning,
for coming.
Elias. No
thanks
problem.
for coming in studio too.
Pleasure to be here.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you it this way: when you see the patch, what does it represent for you?
Well, I know its significance. I speak to a lot of police officers. The patch, like as you summed it up well originally, is for them, it's a strong significance to honor their fallen police officers in the line of duty. So to them, it has that significance. Unfortunately, it's been taken over by certain hate groups, some right groups in the States. And for certain communities, it's become, an issue of more of a divisive issue for certain communities. So, I spoke myself to the chief. It's a sensitive topic. I'm well aware of that. And, I'm confident that he's going to come up with a solution where both the police officers can find a way to keep honoring their fallen, colleagues.
Yeah.
And where the community groups and the other groups that are feeling less that's divisive will be more comfortable with, with what's going on. So he's going to come back with me with certain solutions, maybe some options, and we'll go from there. But I'm confident he'll come up with something.
So through like friends and previous relationships that I've had in my life,
yeah.
I've got a couple of circles in Ontario that revolve around police circles, and I'm still I'm in on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm still in contact. So I know these Ontario police officers. In Ontario, it's unbelievable. Like the number of officers that have been killed in the line of duty in Ontario, you compare it to Quebec, it's unbelievable the difference there. And I know I've seen their posts and that kind of stuff. When they lose a colleague, like they're, that thin blue line symbol, you see for them and how they use it that it is for, honoring their colleagues.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you see the other things, and it's from the United States, how in the U.S., this is a symbol that's being used, their version of the symbol, because it's not the Canadian flag, it'll be U.S. flag. That version of the blue line means something completely different. So can it simply mean in the Canadian Montreal context that it's supporting officers?
The goal, I'm confident that we'll find a way where the police officers will be respected, because to them it's a very important symbol. Mm-hmm. However, we can't negate the fact that it's become, unfortunately, for certain communities, something that's more divisive, and they're very uncomfortable with it. So, again, I'm confident the chief will find a way to respect his police officers, to respect the community. And he's since he's been in office, he's been very strong with community relations. He's built really good relationships with all kinds of communities in Montreal. He's well respected. So, I'm going to wait and see what he says and some of his solutions. And I'm confident that we'll find something shortly.
At the end of the day, does it come down to, well, you got uniform, and it's easy. This is nothing about what it represents. Comes down to uniform code. Is it as easy as that?
We'll see what he says. I'm going to wait for his recommendations.
Okay. And if the recommendation is, hey, all of our cops are going to have this one thing, and this is what it means, which
I'll have to make a decision, together with all of us to see where we'll go with his recommendations. I can't propose what his recommendations will be at this point.
What I know you've spoken to a lot of police officers and the police chief. What about members of the community? Have they shared any sentiment with you?
I've spoken with a lot of people. I've visited every single police station in the city, all 31 of them. I've met with all the community groups, different communities. So I'm well aware of the issue. I'm very sensitive to it, as much as in the Anglophone community, all kinds of communities. So, I'm going to wait and see. I think it's a sensitive issue. I think it has to be well tackled, and we'll see what the police chief comes up with.
Just personally, do you think that we should separate what happens in the U.S. versus what happens north of the border? Because sometimes I feel like what politicians and others do, they look at social issues in the U.S. and they try and import it to make a case north of the border. Do you worry that happens sometimes?
Well, I've never looked at it that way. I often say that we're not the States. You know, when people compare things about our police, a lot of the examples are from the States, a lot of the social movements. Our police are not like the police in the States. You know, we work differently, we're trained differently, and we're working really hard now and even improving all of that. The backgrounds of the police officers. So I don't go down that route. I think our police officers are not at all like the ones in the States.
But doesn't it get frustrating for you when people use American examples to make their argument that we should have less police, or that our police aren't trained well, or that there's police brutality just because they see the examples from south of the border? Does it frustrate you?
I wouldn't say frustration. I think my job is to explain to everybody what we're doing, to be factual, to let them know that, you know, and to be transparent as to what we're doing. And also, if things don't go well, we need to be humble about it and try and make things better. So that's the approach I take. I think we're on the right track. As all the statistics show, I think we'll talk about it later, but you know, we'll wait and see.
Okay, let's turn our attention here. We're with Alain Vaillancourt, who's head of public security on the city's executive committee. There were worries, right, before the summer that there was going to be, quote unquote, a hot summer. Lots of gun crime, that things would heat up amongst gangs and other nefarious elements. It's failed to materialize. Well, so what do you think happened here? Why has it not turned into? Why have the worst concerns not happened?
There was a worry. I expressed it myself. You know, concretely, we've just this summer we're about 40% less gun violence related crimes as to we were in 2020. The average of 21-22. And since January, we're down 30%. So it's a huge drop. But I caution everyone, it's fragile. You know, it could turn on a dime quickly. We're aware of that. What made the difference is several things. One of the things that we did, we have all the teams, the mixed teams together, the Arrêt team, the Eclipse, the Centaur. But we had a strategy, and it's not new as of this summer, but it was intensified to what we call collectives. The collectives are where police officers from different groups, you know, enquêteurs, police officers, sociocoms, get together and share information. The crux of the issue is information sharing and being more surgical as far as where we go, how we deal with it. So, for example, we'll get an information where they know something's going to happen in a certain area. They'll go see the person, either make an arrest, either, you know, be there to ensure that it doesn't happen. And they'll even go and sometimes talk to the parents, they'll go to coaches and say, who has the influence on these young people to make a difference? We know something's going on, so we need someone in their circle. So as much prevention they're doing, as much sharing of information, it's more precise as to where they're hitting, and it's made a difference this summer.
So you've seized a ton of guns.
We've seized about 225 guns. That's in June and July. That's 3 times more than last year. That's just the SPVM. That's not counting all the other seizures that are happening with other groups. So it's huge, and it's working.
So on seizing the guns, right? Because if you seize guns, it seems to me there'll be less gun crime here. Have you put so many resources in that perhaps other stuff has increased? And I'm just thinking about the situation with drug use in streets, and that you have to choose priorities. Yeah. Seems like it's a success on gun crime. Boy, you've got the stats that say, wow, this has been good. But then I see the drug use and the other things that are happening in the village and in Chinatown, and I go, ooh, that's not as good as I was hoping for. Yeah. So is that the tough balancing act? Or?
Well, it's always, I don't think we can... I think we need to do everything. The issue in the last few years was gun violence. It was increasing, so we dealt with that, and I think we've been successful. Although, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to keep going that way, and we need to also work hard at it. The other issues are very complex too. I mean, the homelessness situation, the situation in the village. It goes beyond, it's all kinds of issues. It's mental health, it's homelessness, it's drug use. Fentanyl is coming into our streets. Maybe less in other areas, but it's coming. We need to tackle that. So it's also become a priority, and we're working with all levels. I met with the Ministre Bonnardel just last week, and the police chief here in this area. And we discussed it. We need to all work together. He's working now with his social services, with the health, with Minister Dubé. We're doing the same at the city. So we all have to tackle that issue differently than we necessarily tackle gun violence.
Getting homeless people off the street, helping people who are facing mental health crisis. I'm like so on board with that. But when I see legal activity, like people using drugs out in the open, people dealing drugs out in the open, I want to see a crackdown there.
I agree. You know, I spoke with your local chief here last week, and I actually spoke to him this morning, and you know, he reassured me that despite it hasn't been easy in the area, you know, we all know that, but a lot of stuff's being done that you don't see. You know, he says we have these enquêteurs, we have, you know, what happens is you have a homeless population, vulnerable people, then a criminal activity kind of take advantage of their presence and their vulnerability. So they are tackling that, but you don't necessarily see it. It's not overnight that they can eliminate the criminal activity in that, but they do it, and they're building cases, they're trying to go, and what they do is instead of necessarily attacking the small dealer, which they do, they really need to go up the chain and get the head of the resort. So they're doing it, but we need to do more, and we really need to tackle all the other issues, which we do with, you know, EMIS. We work with the teams now too. Work with the CIUS. I have meetings with the CIUS and the police officers, the mixed teams, social workers. I think the difference now is that everyone is really working together and see it as everyone's issue.
Well, if you can look at the success on the gun issue, right? I mean, there's an example where if there's a will, there's a way. It can be done. Let's not lose hope. Sometimes I feel like we've lost hope, but we've got examples of success. Alain, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Alain Vaillancourt from the City of Montreal. He's the head of public security on the executive committee.